And welcome everyone to another week of the Focus TV. This is season 8, episode 9. We're joined as always by Octavia Wyatt, Cardell Dudley Jr., Raymond Lyons, Wilson Turpin Jr. Now, I'll tell you, we're gonna get straight to it. Look, we went from wild card weekend to divisional round. From divisional round, we'll get to the NFC and AFC championship games, which means we're that much closer to the Super Bowl in New Orleans. What happened this week in the divisional round?
I feel like this weekend should have been called Wild Weekend too, because it was just wild. It's just crazy. But yeah, we are finally through the divisional round. We had 8 teams go in, 4 teams come out. And some were expected and some were not, unless you are a fan of said team. But we will go in order of the games. So we will start with the first game of the weekend, which was the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Houston Texans. The Kansas City Chiefs, no surprise, defeated the Houston Texans 23-14. CJ Stroud, 19 of 28, 245 yards. He was sacked 8 times, 6 carries for 42 yards. Joe Mixon had 18 carries for 88 yards and 1 touchdown and 2 receptions for 12 yards. And Nico Collins had 5 receptions for 81 yards. On the other side, Patrick Mahomes, 16 of 25, 177 yards, 1 touchdown and 3 sacks, 7 carries for 14 yards. Kareem Hunt had 8 carries, 44 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 reception for 2 yards. And no surprise, Travis Kelce, 7 receptions for 117 yards and 1 touchdown. I say no surprise with Travis Kelce just because I feel like he always kind of turns it on in the playoffs. I remember hearing some things last week where they were saying he was actively contemplating if this would be his last year just because he really didn't feel like he was reaching the goals that he's used to every year. We know we talked about his reception totals were down and how he was missing early on in the season. But when you shell out another performance like this, I don't see how he can't be ready to play again next year, but I guess we'll see. Craziest thing, Patrick Mahomes has never lost in the divisional round of the playoffs, and the Houston Texans still have never won in the divisional round of the playoffs. Crazy enough. But yeah, as much as we pretty much all kind of, I would assume, figured that the Chiefs would find a way to win, it was a little bit closer than I thought it would be. It was definitely more of a defensive battle between both teams. The Chiefs' defense, of course, was led, not of course, but they were led by George Karlaftis, who has played very, very well. He basically was on CJ Stroud all night again. CJ Stroud had 8 sacks. So I'm sure he was getting tired of seeing him as well. He definitely had a situation during the game where he ended up limping off of the field. Wasn't sure if he would get back in, but he was able to do so. Karlaftis had 3 of his team's 8 sacks and 8 of his 21 pressures. Although with all of that in his face, CJ Stroud still was able to lead the Texans to 336 total yards versus the Chiefs' 212 total yards. Usually when you win the yard battle, you think sometimes they're going to come out, especially when you're playing against the Chiefs and their defense. But unfortunate for them, they were on the wrong side of that. Again, talking about Travis Kelce, it's like him and Mahomes are always on the same page. He tallied game highs of 7 receptions, 117 yards, more yards than he had in any game in the regular season, including this was a postseason career long 49-yard game changer reception. Wide open. It still blows my mind for a lot of the times during games where Travis Kelce is just like left alone in the middle of the field and just for whatever reason, nobody sees him. Except for Patrick Mahomes, he usually gets him the ball. The Texans, like I said, the defense was really the star of this game. Their defense played well. I mean, Will Anderson has been playing well all year. We know Derek Stingley Jr. as well has played well this year. Anderson, in the beginning of the game, in the first half, he had 4 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits, and 4 quarterback pressure, but was less effective in the second half, which again kind of led to the Chiefs starting to pull away. The Texans did hold the Chiefs, who were the number 2 in third down conversions of the regular season, so 4 of 11, and again, only 212 yards. You usually think when you hold Patrick Mahomes to 177 passing yards that you're in a good position to possibly win the game. And I mean, they lost by 9, not terrible, but it just didn't come up. It didn't come up good for them in this game. Of course, the biggest storyline coming out of this is the penalties that Patrick Mahomes seems to always get. Um, if you're not a Chiefs fan, I feel like a lot of people have questions about these flags that get thrown for Patrick Mahomes and seemingly not thrown for other quarterbacks. If you're a fan of the Chiefs, everything's great. You're good. Don't breathe on Patrick. We need him. And especially with this game being the first game that their starters have played in 23 games. I mean 23 days, excuse me. It was their first game for the starters back since they did sit out the last regular season game. So it was their last since the last time they played on Christmas. Um, it was a lot of are they going to be rusty? Are they not? I would say they probably on offense did play their best game, but they did what needed to be done to win the game. Um, we talked about the Texans defense. Again, the Chiefs defense played well as well. Cornerback Trent McDuffie was across from Nico Collins, who we know have had an outstanding year. But he was across from him on 22 of his 32 routes, which was 68.8% of the time, and he only allowed 2 receptions for 42 yards for 4 targets on an average target separation of 1 yard. So their defense definitely keyed in on Nico, and we know that Nico is a focal point of their wide receivers due to the fact that Stephon Diggs is out as well as Tank Dell to injuries. But Patrick Mahomes won his 8th consecutive playoff game, breaking the tie with Hall of Famers Troy Aikman, John Elway, Joe Montana, and Terry Bradshaw for the 3rd longest quarterback winning streak in the postseason, which is wild. He's not even 29. I think he's like 28 or something like that. But yeah, they are moving on as I would assume most people expected. For something, if you did not live in this area, that was not expected, the Washington Commanders played against the Detroit Lions, and it pains me to say, pains me a lot, because I do not want to see this man for the next 10 some odd years since the Washington Commanders decided to be a functioning franchise. I don't like it, but here we are. The Washington Commanders defeated the number 1 seed Detroit Lions 45-31. Opposite of the last game, this was not a defensive game. This was a shootout. Jaden Daniels was 22 of 31, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 sacks, 16 carries for 51 yards. Brian Robinson Jr. had 15 carries for 77 yards and 2 touchdowns. De'Ami Brown, who's come on as of late, 6 receptions, 98 yards. Terry McLaurin got in there, 4 receptions, 87 yards and 1 touchdown. And old reliable Zach Ertz, 5 receptions, 28 yards and 1 touchdown. The other side, Jared Goff was 23 of 40, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, sacked twice and had 1 carry for 7 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, 14 carries for 105 yards, 2 touchdowns and 6 receptions for 70 yards. Jamison Williams has the weirdest stat line ever. 1 reception for 19 yards, 1 carry for 61 yards and a touchdown. And he was 0 for 1 on passing attempts and an interception. That was just wild. Amon St. Brown had 8 receptions for 137 yards. And Sam Laporta had 6 receptions for 51 yards and 1 touchdown. Defense was played in this game. It probably wasn't at the forefront, but the fact that the Washington Commanders accounted for 5 turnovers on the Detroit Lions. I talked about the interceptions, but there were also fumbles. It's crazy. We saw the Detroit Lions early in the season have a 5 interception game from Jared Goff and still win. I believe that was against the Houston Texans. I can't remember. They were not able to do that. That anomaly last time was definitely, like I said, an anomaly. Does not happen when you throw the ball away that many times. And this time it bit them in the behind in this game. But the story, of course, coming out of this is Jaden Daniels. I feel like I say this every week. Unanimous offensive rookie of the year. There's no question behind that. I don't know the last time we saw such a great rookie campaign from a quarterback. Just in this light, I mean, he was lights out. He only missed on a couple of his passes. Again, 299 yards, passing yards, 2 touchdowns. To add to that, the 51 rushing yards with the legs. We know that Detroit has been seriously banged up on the defensive side of the ball, and they were able to kind of patchwork it throughout the rest of the season, but they weren't able to do so this week when they played against Jaden Daniels. Now, like I said, defense was played in this game, more so on the turnover side, but the Commanders did yield in excess of 500 yards and gave up 31 points to the Detroit Lions. So if the Detroit Lions, I'm sure they're at home kicking themselves that if they didn't have that many turnovers, we don't know what would have happened in that game. But at the same time, Jaden Daniels seems to have ice running through his vein. He's always calm. He's always poised, which is very rare for a rookie, a rookie quarterback. You know, a lot of people have talked about all year, when will he hit the rookie wall? When will he hit the rookie wall? It hasn't happened yet, and he's looked unstoppable. For the Lions, again, the turnovers is what really threw them in. Goff was picked off 3 times. He also fumbled. There was a pick 6. It was just bad, you know. And then even with that portion of it, you know, the Lions are definitely known for their trick plays. They had a couple of good trick plays in there. Outside of whenever, I don't know who Jamison Williams thought was down there, but it wasn't anybody on his team. That was one that should have been thrown out of bounds, or he should have just got down or something. I don't know. But that definitely was not it. He threw the ball into triple coverage. It just didn't work out for them in this game. You really probably attribute it to the fact that their defense just really wasn't able to stop Jaden Daniels, and the Commanders' defense was able to yield some turnovers for them. But they also had a very, very costly penalty where the Commanders have been going for it a lot on 4th down, just like we've seen with Dan Campbell over the last couple of years. I believe it was a 4th and 2, close to maybe within the 5-yard line. And they were going for it. And they didn't even have to go for it because, unfortunately, the Detroit Lions had 12 men on the field. Nobody noticed. No timeout was called. Gave them an automatic 1st down, and the rest is history. I will say it's always sad when I see a coach very emotional talking about how much their team worked hard. And we know the storyline behind Detroit, how they ended the season last year and then ended the season this year. And then speaking from experience, when you lose 2 of your coordinators, where they've already lost offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, who will be the new head coach of the Chicago Bears, which is also a double insult to injury, knowing that he's going to be staying within their division and going to be trying to get what Jaden Daniels is for the Washington Commanders out of Caleb Williams for the Chicago Bears. And then we know possibly Aaron Glenn, who I believe they said he's on his 2nd interview with the New York Jets. He has interest from the Saints. I think it's also the Jags. And it's pretty much solidified that he would also have a head coaching position. It's going to be really, really tough for them, especially in the NFC North, where although the NFC North was probably the best division of this year, all 3 of the teams that made the playoffs did not win a playoff game. But all of those teams, the Bears, you would assume, would be better than they are this year. The Vikings, you would assume, would either be better or marginally the same. We know there's some questions about if Sam Darnold's going to stay or not. They just re-upped their coach to a multi-year contract as well. No lame duck season for him. And the Green Bay Packers, we know Jordan Love is a hell of a quarterback. We know Matt LaFleur is a hell of a coach. And they have a lot of young talent there as well. So it's going to be really, really tough in the NFC North. Speaking of with Jaden Daniels, I said having one of the best rookie seasons ever. I saw this little stat where they said by EPA per dropbacks, including the postseason numbers, Daniels is having the 5th best rookie quarterback season, which I was very surprised about. Although we know the NFL goes back a long time. By success rate, it's 3rd. Players above him include Robert Griffin, Justin Herbert, and Dak Prescott, guys who all had, of course, incredible rookie years, but none of them have had multiple postseason wins. Did not get their teams to the NFC Championship or AFC Championship when you talk about Justin Herbert. And none of them went on the road, knocked off the number 1 seed, who was 15-2, to go to an NFC Championship. This is definitely going to sound like a shot. I'm sorry, Ray. But to see how fast of a turnaround it was for the Washington Commanders in their first full season post Daniel Snyder to get to the NFC Championship is crazy. And the Cowboys now hold a terrible stat, and they are the only team in the NFC who has not been to an NFC championship since the last time they, I believe, won, which was 1995, 1996. That is, it to me, it's just crazy to think how fast the turnaround was. I hate it. I wish bad teams stayed bad like them, but here we are. And that is definitely the bias in me, and I will own that. Next game of the weekend, the Philadelphia Eagles played against the Los Angeles Rams. They were victorious and defeated the Rams 28-22. Jalen Hurts was 15 of 20, 128 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He was sacked 7 times, 7 carries for 70 yards and 1 touchdown. Saquon Barkley, 26 carries, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 4 receptions for 27 yards. And Dallas Goedert had 4 receptions for 56 yards. On the other side, Matthew Stafford, 26 of 44, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 5 sacks, 2 carries for 5 yards. Kyron Williams, 19 carries, 106 yards, 1 reception, -1 yard. Puka Nacua had 6 receptions and 97 yards and a crazy catch. Tyler Higbee, 7 receptions, 54 yards, and 1 touchdown. And Colby Parkinson, 2 receptions, 9 yards, and 1 touchdown. Let the national media talk about it. The story coming out of this game was, what's wrong with Jalen Hurts? Why isn't he not throwing the ball? Why isn't A.J. Brown catching the ball? Why isn't Devontae Smith doing more? What's going on with the passing game? AJ's on the sideline reading books. It's everything but what should be focusing on, which is Saquon Barkley is doing what we paid him to do, and we're not going to go away from that for anybody. I believe, and again, this might be my bias, and I'll be honest with that. I believe that Jalen Hurts can throw the ball. We've seen it this year. But because I don't feel like they're seeing it the way that they want to, they will continuously pick on him. And he's always been one of those quarterbacks that don't get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to that. Even when I was prepping for today, I didn't even realize as much. Like Patrick Mahomes and even Josh Allen had similar passing days as far as their attempts and as far as their yardage and as far as their running backs doing more, as far as them running more as well. But he doesn't get the same treatment as them. I mean, even with Jalen Hurts going to a Super Bowl and Josh Allen never going to a Super Bowl, he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. All they see is Saquon Barkley, who is playing his ass off as he should. I believe in the 2 games against the Rams this year, he rushed for over 500 yards against that team by himself. And he's doing what he needs to do. Yes, a lot of his yardage comes from long touchdown runs. In the first quarter, he ripped off a 62-yard touchdown that was executed so well up front that tackle Jordan Mailata didn't even have anybody to block downfield. He was literally looking around for somebody to push, and there was nobody there. And then, of course, he had a 78-yard run in the second half for another touchdown. So 2 of his runs accumulated 140 yards. Outside of that, on his other 24 carries, he averaged 2.7 yards per attempt, which, you know, it is what it is. But those big home run hits definitely kind of take the life out of the defense a little bit. But their defense definitely did try to step up. Jared Verse had a really good game. And as much as they talk about the passing attempt for them, they didn't need it. Nolan Smith Jr. as well is definitely coming on. And then also on the defensive side, you know, they lost Nakobe Dean last week to, I believe he did something to his patellar and he's out for the year. Oren Burks and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. are rotating in, and now Zach Bond is wearing the green dot. So there was definitely some adjustments on that side. But it's also all about Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter is dominating. He's getting treated the way Aaron Donald used to get treated. He's getting double teamed. They literally showed him literally just lifting up Matthew Stafford and just kind of holding him with one hand. And they also showed, not on the telecast, but I also saw online on social media, it looked very similar to what he did in college against the team that they'll have to play next week, which was Jaden Daniels. He casually picked him up as well. So I'm hoping that will happen next year as well. I mean, this next week as well. And then for the Rams, it definitely came across to them not holding on to the ball, you could definitely see the difference of playing in a dome and playing outside. Granted, you know, the snow wasn't something that a lot of the Eagles players want to play in, like playing in or anything like that. But they definitely adapted a little bit better than the Rams did. So it was definitely, you know, a tough game. I think all 4 games that happened this weekend, the team that lost had more total yardage than the team that won, which was kind of crazy. But this was another one. Like I said, Matthew Stafford himself threw for 324 yards. He had all of his players, I think it was like 8 or 9 of them that all accumulated those 324 yards. And Jalen's 128 yards was spread out with like 3 people, I believe, Dallas and Devontae and AJ. But a win is a win. Lastly, Saquon Barkley is the first player in NFL history with 200 plus scrimmage yards in a game against the same opponent in both regular season games and a playoffs game in the same season. He had, again, the 302 scrimmage yards versus the Rams in week 12 and 205 in this past week. Last but not least, the game of the weekend that everybody was really looking forward to, the Buffalo Bills versus the Baltimore Ravens. The Buffalo Bills, it's so funny because as soon as I said that, all of y'all faces was like, the Buffalo Bills defeated the Baltimore Ravens 27-25. Josh Allen, again, like I said, very similar numbers to Jalen Hurts, 16 of 22, 127 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He was sacked once, 10 carries for 20 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. James Cook had 17 carries for 67 yards, 3 receptions for 15 yards. Running back Ray Davis had 4 carries for 29 yards and 1 touchdown. And Khalil Shakir had 6 receptions for 67 yards. Lamar Jackson had 18 receptions for 25 yards, 255 yards. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, sacked twice, and 6 carries for 39 yards. Derrick Henry, 16 carries, 84 yards, and 1 touchdown. Isaiah Likely, 4 receptions, 73 yards, and 1 touchdown. And Rashad Bateman, 4 receptions, 66 yards, and 1 touchdown. Again, the Baltimore Ravens was without Zay Flowers, who missed this game again with the knee injury, which was definitely hurt them. But they definitely still had, obviously, Lamar Jackson had 254 yards passing. So they definitely passed to somebody. And like I just noted, those 3 players, those 2 players are Isaiah Likely and Rashad Bateman, and it's not including, of course, Mark Andrews, who is probably getting the brunt of a lot of disgruntled Ravens fans. I saw a lot of social media said, like, Mark can't come back to the city. It's bad. They don't even want my man back in the city, which I understand because the Ravens have this stigma, not even just the Ravens, more so Lamar gets the stigma that they can't get it done in the postseason. What's crazy is veteran tight end Mark Andrews. He fumbled as well in this game. It was his first fumble since 2019, which is also just mind-blowing that he hasn't fumbled since 2019. And this was the game that, unfortunately for him, that fumble came, as well as this dropped 2-point conversion, because through it all, they still had a chance to be in the game, and they still had a chance to tie it at the end, with Lamar doing everything that he could. But he also has to admit that, you know, he had an interception as well, trying to fix a play that, you know, it was a botch snap. And instead of just taking it and not doing anything to make it worse, fortunately for him, he did. And then also for the Buffalo Bills, this isn't the same team that played them earlier this year. Their defense was missing a lot of key players that were back this week. Matt Milano, the other one is slipping my mind, Terrell Bernard, both missed the first game, and their run defense was definitely gashed a lot, as we know, with Derrick Henry. I still think that for whatever reason, the Ravens forget to run the ball with Derrick Henry a lot. 16 carries is not enough for me in the postseason when you're trying to beat Josh Allen and get to the championship game. Like I said, Saquon had 26 carries. He needed more carries. James Cook had 17 carries, but again, when you have Josh Allen running 10 carries, and then, I mean, I guess Lamar Jackson also had 6 carries. I thought they should have ran the ball a little bit more, but unfortunately for them, really what played them was the turnovers and then the 2-point conversion, because they were really still in the game. They actually were kind of controlling it a little bit, but then they got away from them in the first half. And then they kind of came back. But those miscues definitely did them in. Unfortunate for them. They have to have another off season of, can Lamar do it? Can he not do it? I've been listening to talk radio all week, ever since the game, and they're likening him to Peyton Manning, who couldn't get it done earlier on in his career. I heard a comparison that although they did admit that he's way better than this player, but the Chargers of the 2000s, when they were stacked, and Philip Rivers and all of them, and Antonio Gates and Daniel Tomlinson, how they just couldn't get over it. I was like, okay, guys, I understand we got to talk about this stuff, but let's relax a little bit. But this is the thing that's going to plague him in the offseason. These are the type of think pieces that people are going to put together because for whatever reason, whoever's fault it is, they just have not gotten it done in the playoffs, and they're going to have to go through another offseason cycle having to deal with it. While now the Bills will have to possibly not want to go down the same route and have another offseason of them having to deal with that they can't beat Patrick either. Josh Allen has had 7 playoff rushing touchdowns in 12 playoff games, adding 2 in this game against the Ravens. He's now tied for second all-time for quarterbacks rushing touchdowns in the postseason with crazy Tom Brady, but I guess he just played for however long. You don't rush. Who did it in 48 playoff games. Steve Young 8 leads the way while doing it in 22 postseason games. So as we said, next week we're down to 4 teams. We have the AFC and the NFC Championship. The NFC Championship will take place at 3 o'clock in Philadelphia, which is crazy, with the battle of the NFC East. Who would have thunk it that at the beginning of the year that the 2 teams in the NFC Championship would be the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders? I don't think anybody saw this in the script. I don't think they wrote this in the script. I don't think at all that was a part of it at all. I firmly believe that the Chiefs and the Bills were in the script. The NFC side, not so much. So the Philadelphia Eagles will host the Commanders for the 3rd time this year. They split the season record. And they'll play at 3 o'clock on Sunday, and then the Chiefs will host the Bills at 6 o'clock. This is also a rematch from last year where the Chiefs went into Orchard Park and defeated the Bills. Now the Bills must go into Arrowhead and try to get it.
From the NFL postseason, Ray, the Washington Wizards, and what they've been up to.
Yeah, this will be a much less robust conversation. The Wizards, they're still struggling. They are in the midst of their second double-digit slide of the season after losing to the Kings on Sunday night. That was their 10th consecutive loss. Since we last saw you, they played Phoenix, Golden State, and Sacramento, losing all 3 games. They hosted Phoenix last Thursday. They lost 130 to 123. That game was pretty much a dud until the 4th quarter when, the Wizards kind of made a push and Phoenix had to respond, putting their horses back in the game to ice that one off. That was a career game for Keontae George. The young guys, they just continue to produce and develop. Then they took on the Golden State Warriors to start off their West Coast road trip. They'll be out west for a minute until early next week. They lost to Golden State 122 to 114. Jordan Poole had a big game. He had 38 points. It's just we always talk about how they fail to check off the boxes they need to check off to win games. This game they shot the ball well. They made 22 threes. You should be able to win a basketball game if you make 22 3-point shots. But they were out rebounded 55 to 44. And they actually took care of the ball pretty well, but they weren't able to produce turnovers. The Warriors only had 9 turnovers, and the Wizards missed 7 free throws. In an 8-point game, those little things adding up will cost you a victory. So, it's just they continue to not be able to put together complete games. It was pretty much the same deal against the Kings. That game wasn't as close, but the biggest difference was they didn't shoot the ball as well. They were 10 for 42 from 3. That's 23.8%. we say it all the time. At some point, you gotta go to Plan B. The threes aren't falling. You gotta figure something else out to put the ball in the basket. But that's how they're playing, and that's why they're getting the results they're getting. DeMontis Sabonis just had his way, 29-18 on 12-16 shooting, 2 for 3 from the 3-point line, and it was just a dominant performance. Valanciunas, he had a great game off the bench, 23 and 12, but it just wasn't enough. Poole came back down to earth. He was 4 of 11 for 11 points, and Kuzma had a terrible game, 3-15 for the field, 1 for 7 from 3, and 13 points. So yeah, they're just in a tailspin right now. For me personally, what I'm just going to continue to focus on is the young guys, because they're going to be the future of the team moving forward. So you just want to continue to see them develop and get better, which they are. But if they're basically being left up to their own devices, just to put it bluntly. So expecting them to be able to navigate the league and learn on the fly while also improving and developing and getting better, that's a tall task. So they got to do something to put those guys in a better position. But Wizards still on the left coast. They will be taking on the Lakers tonight, 10:30 tip-off time, and they'll be playing the other LA team on Thursday, starting at 10:30 as well. So yeah, hopefully they can come away from that city with at least one win.
Association to the college level. All right, Cardell, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Over the weekend, it was the battle of the Georges as George Washington took the trip to Fairfax to face George Mason. George Mason, in a physical contest, defeated GW 80-77 in a double overtime classic. The victory moved the Patriots back into sole possession of first place in the A-10 at 14-5 overall, 5-1 in conference play. And George Mason improved to 12-1 at home this season. The Revolutionaries led by 10, 50-40 with 10:41 to play. But 9-0 George Mason surge tied the score at 52 with 7:35 left. At the back and forth final 7 minutes, George Washington's Rafael Castro was fouled on the Revolutionaries' final possession of regulation with 1 second left. He missed both free throws, giving the Patriots second life heading into the extra session. The Patriots led 67-63 with 2:33 left in the first overtime. But GW came storming back, and Castro redeemed himself with 2 free throws with 5 seconds remaining to send the game into a second overtime. All right, in the second overtime with the score tied 74, senior Jared Billups, big time in the clutch, grabbed a huge offensive rebound late in to make it 76-74. Then the freshman Justin Biggs stole the ball and passed it ahead to junior Gio Imajuru, who slammed it home to make it 78-74 with 51 seconds to go. GW redshirt freshman point guard Christian Jones hit a 3-pointer to pull GW back within 78-77 with 40 seconds left. But the Patriots got to stop on the next Revolutionary possession, and Billups hit 2 clutch free throws to effectively ice the game for George Mason. Billups was a monster on both ends of the floor all game long. He had 8 points, pulled down a career best 16 rebounds, including 4 offensive, and 6 of his 8 points were in the 2 overtime sessions. In addition, he had 3 steals. He finished the team best +8 when he was on the floor. Senior guard Darius Maddox notched 17 points and 6 rebounds, while senior Jalen Haynes added 17 points and 8 rebounds in 29 minutes. He fouled out at the end of regulation. KD Johnson chipped in a critical 15 points, 5 rebounds, 3 steals, and 3 assists in 34 minutes off the bench, while junior Braden O'Connor, registered 10 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. The Patriots held GW 39.1% shooting and 22% shooting from deep. GW also held sizable advantages in points off turnovers, 23-12, and bench scoring, 31-15. George Mason turned 15 offensive rebounds into a 16-9 edge and second chance points for the game. The victory is George Mason's 12th in his last 14 games. The Patriots have now won 3 of the last 4 against GW. Next up, George Mason get on the road, and they have to take on a tough St. Bonaventure team at 7 p.m. Just one other thing before I leave you guys with about George Mason. I don't think people understand what's going on down there, how dominant they are defensively. Right now, they're 12th in the country, 12th out of 364 Division I basketball teams in points allowed. They're only giving up 62.7 points per game, and their defensive ratings are 92.6, which is 18th in the country, 18th out of 364 Division I basketball team. So that just tells you what they lead with, what's been guiding them, and the reason why they're winning. And at the top of the A10, and right now you got to say Tony Scann. In his second year, he's right now the favorite to win Coach of the Year in the conference as well.
Yeah, those numbers are crazy defensively. And shout out to them for defense still translates into winning, folks. It's kind of crazy, man. You know, some things don't go out of style. How about that? From the good news over at where Cardell was at, kind of the opposite over in College Park right now for the Maryland Women's. Get this up here real quick. All right. Yeah. It's been a rough week since the last time we spoke. Last week when we were recording the show, the Terps ended up beating Minnesota, who they hosted last week, 99-92. They lost guard Bree McDaniel at the end of the first quarter in that one, though. She went up for a layup and landed awkwardly near the end of the first quarter and had to be carried off the court. Later in the week, news came out that she will be missing the remainder of the season because she tore ACL. And that's a huge, huge loss for Maryland. Her impact's going to be missed on both ends of the floor. And just the infectious edge that she plays with, for as much as, all the other players they have, she's kind of like the heartbeat for them. And in this game that you guys see right now, they definitely missed her. This was the first outing they had without Bree. And we've all been around sports long enough where sometimes your best player might not be your most important player at times, depending on what's going on. When the player that might be the heartbeat of your team, at times the one that brings the edge is missing, it takes teams a couple games sometimes to kind of figure out life without that person. Prior to the injury, McDaniel was averaging 10 points a game off the bench. And, she swayed several contests in Maryland's favor with her production off the bench prior to that injury. After the game against the Gophers, Shannon Sellers led the way with a season-high 27 points. Kayleen Spiegel added 19, and Allie Kubek had 17. That moved the Terps to 6-1 in the conference. Yesterday, as you guys see right here, Maryland faced the 7th-ranked Texas Longhorns, who have a very tough team led by Madison Booker. They beat Maryland 89-51 in the Coretta Scott King Classic. The Longhorns jumped on the Terrapins early, racing out to a 15-5 lead and would lead 28-12 after one. Madison Booker had 13 of her game-high 28 in the opening period. Texas never looked back. They used their defense to turn Maryland over. They did a great job just messing up all of Maryland's actions with their defensive intensity. And then things got worse for Maryland in the second half. They lost Cheyenne Sellers to a knee injury in the second half. The severity of that knee injury hasn't no official things come out as of right now. So wishing her a speedy recovery, that it's not serious. Obviously, President Bree McDaniel hoping that her recovery goes well as well. But if Maryland falls to 16-2 on the year, the only silver lining of that is that it was not a conference game. That loss to Texas. It's sports. Everyone has games like that. When it's not your day, it's not your day. And sometimes you find out early. That said, credit to Texas. It's one of the best teams in the country. And I think the last couple of times Texas plays Maryland, they've gotten the best of Maryland. I think the last time was in NCAA tournament. But Texas is tough. It's a very tough team. Credit to them for that. For Maryland trying to figure out life without Bree at the moment, Brenda Freeze, and this is after the game, I think you can see as we're trying to regroup as a team, losing Bree and then having Sellers go down was extremely painful to be going against a pressing team with limited guard play. Against Tech, that's not Texas's problem. They did what you're supposed to do. They came out, they hounded Maryland, and it led to a dominant win. For Maryland, not a lot of time to figure things out. This is a tough week. They had Texas on Monday. They got Ohio State on Thursday on the road, and they return home to host UCLA on Sunday. One of those games, the Texas game, not a Big Ten game. The other two will be. So we will see how Maryland responds. Obviously, I'm sure they're hoping and praying for great news for Sellers' return this season, that it's not, it's of the variety that she can return. Regardless, the folks that are healthy, you got to figure things out. You got 2 conference games this week with a chance to continue to build your conference resume. As of right now, you are 6-1 in Big Ten play. Cardell, pass it back on to you for take it or leave it or rapid fire.
Yes, sir. Rapid fire. We're going to jump right into it. Man, Brittany Griner, for the first time since she was drafted #1 overall by the Phoenix Mercury in 2013, Brittany Griner will explore free agency this WNBA offseason. Her agent reported on Tuesday via ESPN. Multiple teams are expected to speak with Griner starting on Tuesday. Her agent shared negotiations officially start on Tuesday, and WNBA players can start signing contracts on February 1st. The new 3-on-3 Women's Basketball League Unrivaled has turned out to be a great spot for teams to speak with free agents about the upcoming WNBA season, Griner included. The inaugural Unrivaled season kicked off last Friday with Brighton's Phantom BC playing its first game on Saturday. So far, Phantom BC is 0-2. They play their next game on Friday versus Miss BC. We're talking about the opportunity. Unrivaled has given players. Griner admitted she wants to show off my skills for free agency. It sounds like she's hoping to land on a new team for the 2025 season. This, of course, isn't the first time Griner has been a free agent in her career, but she always ends up re-signing a contract with the loyal Mercury. Question for you guys: could this be the year where the 10-time All-Star moves on? Octavia, I'll start with you. And also, if she does move on, what team would be a good fit?
Yeah, I think that she definitely could be the year. Excuse me. As we saw the last couple of years, there's been a shift in some of those players who have been in places for a very, very long time, kind of taking a step out, seeing Stewie leave Seattle, seeing Nneka leave LA, seeing, Jonquel leave Connecticut, and go on to produce still, and be a good fit for other teams. I think it would be very interesting to see her somewhere else outside of Phoenix, especially if, and it might be good for both organizations, to be honest, and especially if Diana Taurasi really does retire. I don't know if it's been announced or anything like that. Like they could be looking to like go in a new direction with maybe some more younger players as well. I don't know 100% where she would fit at, but I feel like somebody of her caliber could pretty much fit almost anywhere. As long as she still has, this unrivaled tournament, the 3-on-3, like she stated, could definitely show off that she still has, a lot of potential left in her. Not potential, but you know what I mean? Like she still has a lot left in the tank to provide to a new franchise. I think she would probably translate almost anywhere because somebody is definitely going to need, I don't even know how tall she is, 6'9", whatever person that they can rely on, as long as she can stay healthy. So I think it would be interesting. I think it would be a nice shakeup for her as well. And like I said, some of those other stars have, took a leap of faith and went out into another situation and seemingly have flourished. I think it could be the same for her.
Right.
Yeah, I just think just based on how she's speaking on the topic that she'll more than likely move on. Typically players don't say they're pretty much auditioning for other teams if they plan on re-signing where they are. As far as the next move, if I'm Vegas, I'm on the phone ASAP. Asia been fighting for her life for the past couple seasons. So yeah, I would think pairing her with Asia would be devastating for other teams in the league. So yeah, that would be if I'm them, I'm definitely making a call immediately.
Yeah, Asia been fighting for her life, but I think the opponent's been fighting for their lives a lot more, dealing with her, man, to be real. But Wilson.
Ray took my answer, man. I was about to say, get your Spurs, Timmy and David on, man. Forget all that. Just make this easy. Brittany, we only need you about 20, 25 minutes a night. When people want to get a little too rough, here and all that. Outside of that, Asia can slide up. We can get a young big off the bench for when you need a breather or two, if you will. If you do enough damage, 20, 25 minutes. You don't need to play anymore anyway. She'll take it from there. But yeah, man, it's that time. You almost, who knows how many more years she has left on this side of her career. Man, I'm sprinting to Vegas if I'm her. Just, Asia, how can I help? Just what you need from me. Also, like, they don't need you to be dominant BG. And I'm sure the Aces aren't the only team, but that's the luxury for her at this time in terms of it being free agency. You can choose, and I obviously I'm not her. I don't know how she's looking about it, but there's a couple spots where they don't need you to be the BG of old. They just need what you bring to the table right now, and it would do a lot. But again, I'm with Ray. Vegas is at the top of the list. Arms race. You saw New York got their lick back last year. They got their lick back. There's one way when you be like, this is it. This is one of those ways.
Yeah, I feel like she's gonna move on. You kind of saw the energy with Phoenix last season, where it's just like, all right, it's time. Not just her, with Tarazi and all that. It's just they got to decide. It's just time to go young. It happens. Y'all saying Vegas? The first team that came to mind for me was the Lynx. Go with Fees. Courtney and all those ladies. Kayla, all them. WNBA finalists. She'll fit right in, and it's a spot they need to send them, because that's where. In the finals, that's where they got beat up at, with John Quill went to work. You know what I mean? So, I think it'd be a great fit for her. And that's the key, in this type of deal, because there are some teams in the league that just don't need her. Like New York, they don't really need her. They got Stewie and John Quill up front. Even here, I'm pretty sure some fans like, come to the Mystics, but you got Shakira. Now you might get her because of insurance policy. Shakira has an injury history or something like that. But Atlanta has bigs. Dallas crossed my mind. But they got McCowan and Kalani Brown. They already got a couple centers you already investing in. And obviously, I know at her stage, she don't want to go to another lottery team. Otherwise, just stay at Phoenix. Why we just going to do that? You know what I mean? So it has to be a winning situation. So, yeah, it makes sense what y'all saying. Aces and Lynx, I'm pretty sure they blowing her phone up. Like, I'm pretty sure the players – you know what I'm saying? Fees might got the edge because she's playing in her league. Like, look, man, we give you what you need. We give you extra whatever you need, man. Just sign on the dollar. Let's get this over with. So I know I will be. Like, go and she get first dibs in her cold tub. Everything first for her, first class. Until she signed on the dollar, then we good, man. But yeah, it's interesting to see because like I say on the fella side of things, certain players when they move, the league feels it. If she decides to move, the entire league will definitely feel it. Moving on. I'm pretty sure this will get Octavia and Wilson annoyed. Quarterback Trey Make has his next play caller. According to Diana Rossini of the Athletic, the New England Patriots are set to hire Josh McDaniels as their next offensive coordinator. The 48-year-old who interviewed the franchise on Tuesday in Foxborough has widely been considered the favorite since New England announced Mike Vrabel as the head coach last Sunday. Under former offensive coordinator Alan Van Pelt watch in 2024, the Patriots' offense gained just 291.9 yards per game, 31st in the NFL, and scored just 17 points per game, 30th in the NFL. McDaniels will now enter, get this, his third stint as Patriots offensive coordinator, having served in the role from 2006 to 2008, and again from 2012 to 2021. He was most recently served as Las Vegas Raiders head coach before being fired midway through the 2023 season. Ray, what are your thoughts on this, man? Overall,
he got something on somebody. Like I don't understand how you keep spinning the block on somebody that hasn't been successful like ever. But I mean, good luck. They gonna need it. You just said how ineffective their offense was. I don't think Josh McDaniels the answer, but who knows? Maybe he'll do the opposite of what he's done every other time he's gotten this opportunity. But we'll all find that out together.
Wilson.
Hey man, I think it's the only thing he's good at, and only in this place. Which is why I go back to this other thing is, how the hell did y'all keep hiring this man to do anything other than that? Like, soon as New England was like, hey, Josh, go take a break, should have never been hired. Like, outside of that ecosystem, nothing he does works. I don't know why that is. That's also not my problem. But, and again, with New England, why'd y'all do this to Gerard Mayo, man? Why didn't y'all just hire Rabel and get the band back together as soon as Bill left? You could have just did this, because this happened. This looked like you've been waiting to do this since you hired Mayo. So you could have just left Mayo as the DC, had him on, Bill wanted to keep him, be like, hey, as a favor to Bill, we'll keep you as defensive coordinator on Rabel's staff. Like, why are we here doing this stuff? And for Josh McDaniel, I have no other words outside of, I guess, when he's offensive coordinator over there, the offenses are decent. Like, all right, in New England, right, as far as like points and things like that, they've been pretty good offensively. Not like top of the league or anything like that consistently, but it's usually a top 10 offense. But again, why do we keep recycling the same people in the NFL? Just please spruce it up a little bit, mix it up a little bit. But this is very on brand for the Pats. Not shocked at all.
Octavia.
Yeah, I was gonna say the exact same thing. Like, how many times do you get the opportunity to do the same thing over and over again? I mean, we talk about nepotism in the leagues and everything like that. He got to be related to somebody that we just don't know about. Like I don't know. It's like he know where the bodies are buried. He knows, like, maybe he got extra information about Deflategate that he's willing to like possibly tell. I don't know, but but like, I'm not surprised because, like they said, when Mike Vrabel was announced, like, he was automatically the first name that came out. I don't know what he's remotely done that's warranted this many tries. But also, like Wilson said, he definitely, this is like the max for him. Like, we saw what he did in Las Vegas or Oakland, whatever it was at that time. We don't want to see that again. So let him stay in Foxborough. Hopefully he doesn't ruin Drake May. Who knows? But I think he will always have some type of position in New England.
But if he does a bad job this time, if it doesn't work out this time, shouldn't this be it?
It should, but it probably won't be.
Someone's going to lie to themselves and be like, this is the time that Josh figures it out.
Jesus, please. All right, man. Look, moving to the association.
Lord.
The Lakers are sitting a few games above 500 at 22-18. That's 6th in the Western Conference. Barely good enough to avoid having to participate in the play-in tournament to qualify for the NBA playoffs. Again, not much breathing room to suffer an injury. They're in a tough part of the schedule as well. LeBron James will argue that the razor-thin margin is par for the course with this team. Speaking with media after a 116-102 loss to the crosstown foes, I'm not going to say rivals because there's no rivalry, LA Clippers, in response to some questions from Dan Wilkie of the LA Times, the Lakers star bemoaned the fact that the Lakers can't tolerate much error, appearing to blame it on the way the team is constructed. Quote, we don't have a choice but to accept the margin for error. Islam. I mean, that's the way our team is constructed. And we got to play close to perfect basketball, James said. Head coach J.J. Redick agreed with the sentiment, adding that the team cannot create that margin organically. Wilson, what are your thoughts on Mr. James and Mr. Redick's thoughts on the construction of the Lakers roster?
Bro, it's January. We already hitting the "it's not my fault" button. It's January. We haven't even settled into the month, and y'all hitting the button post. Y'all hitting the post All-Star week button. Come on, y'all. Like, it shouldn't have hit this early. Also, organically, if everything was supposed to be the everything that everybody said it was, organically, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Since it is not, that's a problem they need to discuss amongst themselves. First, it was D-Lo. He's gone. So I don't want to hear D-Lo anymore. We running out of people to blame. D-Lo no longer works there. Rui, keep your head on a swivel. Get through this if you can. Just hoop, man. Win. Like, all the stuff we were talking, it was all fun, drawing up plays on the podcast, months ago. Like, oh my gosh, basketball nirvana. Figure it out. You got arguably one of the greatest of all time. Some people call him the greatest of all time. Whatnot. You got AD, who, when healthy, is one of the best bigs in the league. It's not like the roster's horrible. What are we talking about? Because when you were winning, we heard nothing but positives about the roster. People were raving about it. Now, hovering around 500, it's the roster. Also, like, what else do you think can really be done with the roster, sir? Outside of, hitting the big red button. So it's just too early for this button to be hit already. Sorry.
Octavia.
Par for the course. I'm not surprised. I feel like this is the same thing every year, just a different coach saying it now, and LeBron is still the constant. It doesn't surprise me at all. They're going to find a way to blame it on somebody else. And also, like Wilson said, you can't blame it on D-Lo anymore because he's not there. But this is like, I don't know what big changes they made to their roster from last year to this year. Like, it basically looks the same outside of the head coach. So I don't know why they were really expecting to have that big of a difference. I guess the biggest additions was Dawson Connect and Bronny James. I guess they thought that would be enough. So not surprised. Maybe Bronny needs to get some more time. Maybe he needs to hit the court a little bit more. Maybe that'll help him. I doubt it, but you never know at this point. But I'm not surprised. They're going to find a way to scapegoat it on somebody else whose last name is not James or Reddick.
Ray, I see you ready to go over there.
Hey, man, sticking to the grift for this long is impressive. Like Octavia and Wilson said, man, it's clockwork. Clockwork, man. Every year around this time, folks start complaining about personnel and to try to make moves. But yeah, if you're going to be like this, just retire and leave us alone. You don't have to be here. But yeah, like Wilson said, when things were positive, it was we didn't hear any of these complaints. It was, oh my God, look what he's doing at 40. JJ Redick was a great basketball mind and all this other crap. Now that the tides have turned, we have no margin for error. We got to play perfect, and the roster's bad. It's honestly embarrassing. Bring back Shane, but I see we're way beyond that at this point. But yeah, man, it's still a lot of season left, like, and you're already on this mode, like. So we'll see, man. Hopefully people can live up to their billing. If not, then it'll just be more excuses.
Yeah, for me, I just think reality is hitting hard for a lot of teams across the league. That tax apron, it's no joke. The tax apron real. And I don't think a lot of fans understand because it hasn't really, this all season's kind of where it's going to be really going to hit. So a lot of teams are preparing for that. You know what I mean? Like, they're either not moving or they have to give up some pieces, like, what Minnesota did with Karl Towns. That was a tax apron move. You know what I mean? Because they knew going into next offseason, the penalty is outrageous. It's ridiculous. Like, it could cripple your franchise for years. And the value now is it forces teams to have to build up in the draft. You're going to have to know what you're doing. You have to draft and have to really develop players. And you have to make some smart-ass decisions with trades and free agency. And also the other fact is, let's call it what it is. No one's with that in the mix as well. That reason, the tax haven, no one's trying to save the Lakers anymore. Like let's call it what it is. Like we're not on there. And how many players are really raising their hand to go over there and play in that situation? Like y'all not winning. 40-year-old LeBron James offensively is still effective, but let's be for real. I'm looking at his defensive rating. It's a 116. He literally guards the worst player on the floor every night. It's a 116. That goes to show you. And Anthony Davis has to cover up everything, and his is a 110. You see what I'm saying? It's like players know what it is, man. And a lot of people just don't want to admit it. He has a lot of power in the league. In basketball, on sports, media, and all that. He has a lot of ties, so people just don't even want to deal with the headache. But no, it's constructed that way because Pelinka probably can't make any moves. I think people forget for us to trade for a player, the other team has to want to cooperate. It can't just, hey, I want that player, come on over. It doesn't work that way. And if teams are not willing to cooperate, I mean, it is what it is. Like, no disrespect. If you look at their roster, now that D'Angelo Russell's gone, I mean, who over there really has value? Why would I be eager to move? Like, who? Anthony Davis? No disrespect. And, LeBron offensively is still putting up numbers, but I'm not trying to get a 40-year-old LeBron James and gut my team at this point. Like, what's the point? Ain't no telling when he's going to leave. So Anthony Davis, and he's not going to move. Other than that, everything else y'all got, we got. So, I mean, what's the point? And you know what I mean? It's just no point. So, yeah, man. A lot of teams gonna realize, damn, we stuck. Yeah, you can't just cry your way out of a situation. You better get to work and figure it out. Or, hey, man, the off season gonna come a lot quicker than expected, man. It's just as simple as that, man. So, on one hand, it's rough. This tax haven Jones gonna feel like it's a lot of teams gonna feel like they're handcuffed in a lot of ways. But it's another side that I like, whereas it's gonna force teams to have to know what the hell they're doing. People have to do their jobs. Coaches gonna have to get in the gym, develop players. Scouts gonna have to look and know what they're doing. You're gonna be held accountable as an organization now. And if we look down the road 2-3 years from now, teams are still struggling, whatever, that should tell you everything you need to know about your organization. And you need to have an overhaul, so to speak, so you get back to winning. If you even been in winning in a while.
Man, life comes at you fast. These are the new rules. People aware of them. Shout out the players. If you have an issue with it, shout out to your, your folks that were in power, that were anti-Warriors. Y'all hated the Warriors' existence so bad. Trick bag, you have been put in. Here you are. Enjoy life. But Cardell, like you said, I'm definitely here. There's so many bad organizations across professional sports. Do your jobs. Do your jobs. It kind of feels a little obviously the NBA salary cap has a lot more flexibility than the NFL salary cap. It feels a little NFL-ish, the second apron, which I love. Don't draft people that can't play for you. I know this sounds crazy, but some of y'all been doing this for a while and just been getting away with it, like just burning draft picks. Draft picks have value. They always have. We got to a place for some reason where they didn't, or people got away with acting like they didn't. Yeah, man, it's about to get real out here. They've been telling people little by little, and Cardell, like you said, it's the first offseason coming up where it's officially gonna hit you. And I can't wait as these trades start to get rampant, get going, to watch how teams move around.
And one last thing, look at the Phoenix Suns situation. They stuck. Like, I'm not taking on those contracts with them. Y'all can't win with those. Y'all can't win with all three of y'all on the team. So how am I win with one of y'all? Like with the contracts. Like, nah, bro. No. Teams. I'm not doing that. I'm not putting my livelihood on the line for this mess, man. Like, you have to be a game changer, and ain't but so many of those, man. It is what it is.
Draft well. Do your homework. Develop talent. You know, that old school boring stuff. Good organizations gonna keep being good through all out this. Bad teams, you know, everyone love Commanders like turnaround, but that started with like they hit the biggest button.
Yeah.
The biggest of biggest buttons.
The owner got to go.
Like,
the owner has to go.
Bro, they had to ejecto-cedo the organization to save the organization. Everybody doesn't have that button. So shout out to Josh Harris hit that button so hard. He don't even look at the Sixers. They all in the DMV. He doesn't even look at the Sixers. He probably ain't been back over there to check. They don't look at the standings or nothing. Look, we in the playoffs. No knock on the Sixers, but Commanders technically have got out the second round already. Well, very bad news. But hey, we will talk to you guys next week. Thank you all for tuning in. And don't forget, Wizards Outlook, folks, we'll see you several more times this week because of those wonderful, wonderful, wonderful West Coast trips that keep everyone up till 1:30 a.m.